Financial Argument. Follow us on YouTube.
Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, when we look at many of the economic sectors, before the election, after the election, we saw this Trump euphoria where things just bounced up out of nowhere for no apparent reason. There was a lot of soft data that was moving up very, very quickly. And everyone was out there saying, wow, everything's getting back to normal. Everything is fine. The economy's doing well. Well, how possibly can that be? It doesn't even make sense. Trump didn't even do anything. Nothing was changed in the economy. No regulations were changed. There was no new economic policy. Yes, there were promises about jobs, about bringing back manufacturing, but it wasn't actually done. I mean, it was great for publicity. It was great for headlines. It sounded really good. It allowed the stock market to rise. And remember, the stock market's just rising for absolutely no reason. It's not based on anything. It's completely manipulated. And what we're seeing right now is things have dramatically changed. That little dead cat bounce that everyone was all hyped up about, well, things are changing rapidly. What do I mean? Well, yesterday we talked about it, how all of a sudden things started to go the opposite way. Today, we see building permits. Well, during January's Trump bump, building permits in February, they plunged by 6.2% on month. This is the biggest drop since March 2016. So we had a little Trump bump in January. Come February, things are back to normal. We see a tumble in multifamily units also. I mean, things are going the opposite way right now. We're not going in the same direction anymore. Things have dramatically changed. And it appears now that home builders are more willing to talk about how great things are compared to how things really are. I mean, home builder optimism, yeah, they could be very optimistic. But when you see housing starts, building permits, sales of homes going the opposite direction, optimism is meaningless at this because there's nothing to back it up. We see the Philly Fed. Well, the soft data, it was moving up and up and up, and all of a sudden it snapped. It's heading down once again. But when we look at the hard data on the Philly Fed never went anywhere. Now, the Philly Fed just dropped most in 11 months, and the cracks in the sentiment are starting to show. Philly Fed's business outlook tumbled from 33-year highs in March, falling the most since March of 2016. Prices paid surged in March as new orders stagnated and general business activity tumbled. So post-Trump rise, it's starting to stall right now. Now, Goldman is out there, and they are warning that Trump's budget, well, there's not much to it. And when we look at it, we can see there's a lot missing, like the fiscal projections and no discussion of tax reform or infrastructure plans, which the White House says will be released in coming months, likely as a part of a full budget submission to Congress that we expect to be released around May. It also includes no discussion of the Obamacare replacement plan at all. Now, what's very interesting about all of this, you scratch your head and you say, okay, he really didn't come up with anything. Think about why. Why wouldn't he come up with anything right now? Why is he putting it off? Why didn't he put any projections in there? Why didn't he talk about the infrastructure spending and the tax reforms? Well, remember what the central bank is doing right now, the Fed. They just raised the rates. There's a reason for it. Nothing happens by mistake. Their goal right now is to bring down the market. Their goal right now is to crash this. And they already started the process. That was phase 3. They're moving into phase 4. And they need Trump's economic policy, his budget plan. They need it to be in place right now. Because this way, once it's in place and everything's all set and done, they can say, okay, we are now on Trump's plan. But he hasn't done this yet. He's putting it off. There's a reason for it. Because he understands what the central bank is up to. Something very interesting today. Trump visited the site of Andrew Jackson. He also has Andrew Jackson hanging on the wall behind him. And we know what Andrew Jackson did. He removed the central bank. And this is why the central bankers wanted to remove Andrew Jackson from the $20 bill. They're trying to wipe out the history of what he actually did. And what's very interesting is that he is continually bringing up Andrew Jackson, visiting Andrew Jackson, which is kind of a message that he's sending it to the central bank. I know what you're up to, and my goal right now is to remove the central bank, to take control of the central bank. Now, he might not remove it completely. He might just take control of it, just like Putin has taken control of the central bank. He dictates what the central bank will do. It'd be better if we got rid of it altogether. That would be the wise choice. But we see right now that at this point, there's a power play going on. And remember, we're still looking at his actions. There are certain actions where the deep state, the neocons, they've taken control over certain areas. There are other actions that he is doing that he's trying to maneuver a way of taking control of the central bank. So there's a huge battle going on right now. And it all depends on who's stronger, who has the ability to withstand, who has the ability to say, this is the way it's going to be. Is he strong enough to fight the deep state, the neocons, and the central bank? Or is he going to fold and completely give in? This is what we are looking for. But when we look at the Fed rate hike, they've done this into a very weak economy. Actually, an economy that is completely made up of illusionary numbers. And when we start to look at what they've done here, we see that it makes no sense to raise the rates right now. Because if we go back in time, the economy was a lot better off during different periods in 2016 than it is today. Now, when the Fed announced this rate hike, we discussed this yesterday, the Atlanta Fed came out with their GDP growth of 0.9%, which is absolutely awful. And if that projection turns out to be accurate, and that's what the GDP number is, well, this would be the weakest quarter of economic growth during which rate hikes were hiked in 37 years. We see the flow of credit is more critical to our economy than ever before, and higher rates will mean higher interest payments on adjustable rate mortgages, auto loans, credit cards, and we're already seeing it in the housing market. Mortgage rates jumped. The number of people defaulting on them had already been rising. Now it's going to rise even faster. Higher rates will likely accelerate the ongoing retail apocalypse because we know there's a lot of money coming due very soon. We also recently learned that the number of distressed retailers in the United States is now at the highest level that we've been in since the last recession. Most American individuals cannot write a check for $500 or more. And if credit card rates go up and people are using the credit cards to make purchases and to live off of, it's going to be even more difficult. The bond market is already crashing. Most observers only watch stocks, but the truth is, a bond crash almost always comes before a stock market crash. Bonds have been falling like a rock since Trump's election, and we're not too far away from a full-blown crisis. And then we have the debt ceiling. Not too much about the debt ceiling in the corporate media, but the suspension of the debt ceiling has ended. And to raise the debt ceiling, well, you're going to need about 218 votes in the House of Representatives. And we know that the Treasury's cash balance is going to run out most likely by Memorial Day. And the government right now is not bringing in enough revenue because it just experienced the largest decline since the last financial crisis. So what we're seeing right now is we're in a really bad position. So what Janet Yellen, the central bankers, have just done is they raised rates in a very weak economy. Now, we know that the Fed doesn't care about GDP growth because they would have done this back during the election period of time when GDP was 3% or when it was 2.1% previous to that. The question is, why would the Fed want to hike twice in 3 months during a sub 2% GDP growth? The simple answer is stock price. Now that the markets are once again roaring, the Fed has decided it's time to start hiking again, and as it hikes, they're going to try to deflate the stock market bubble. Translation, bring the market down. Because every time they've tried this before, well, the stock market doesn't react very well. And these stock bubbles, they don't deflate that easily. Usually they collapse in a big way. The Fed knows this. But of course, they use this as an excuse like, oh, we're doing this to help the people. This is going to make it better for everyone. The central bank never does anything to help the people. They're in it for themselves. They have no allegiance to any country or group. Their allegiance is to themselves. They don't care who has the reserve currency as long as they're in control of the creation of currency. That is it. Because their job is to put countries into debt and take control of countries. Now, Carl Denninger is out there, And he's saying it is a mathematical certainty that this economy is going to collapse. He said this time we won't recover. Even if they add more hopium and fraud, that card has already been played, which means the pension funds, annuities across the nation are going to get smoked. And it's all going to come down. It's going to be a complete disaster. And they're going to come for all of it. Pension funds, private retirement funds, savings accounts, you name it. They'll raise taxes to extreme levels. What we're seeing right now is a complete destruction of the economy. And they're already in full-blown mode. And they're all ready to bring it down. It's just a matter of time here. The plan has already been set. They already know what they're doing. And of course, when all is said and done, and this stock bubble crashes down, and the real economy pokes its head out and shows everyone what's really happening here, and the credit markets freeze up, and all deliveries to stores freeze up, yes, the Fed is going to step in, and it's going to say, listen, if you need our help, we can help. We can create more currency, because this is really what they want to do. And are they really helping the situation? No. They're pumping their friends back up. They're pumping their system back up. And for everyone else, it's going to be awful. Is it going to work this time? No. So they'll keep creating more and more currency. And it will not help the system. It will make it worse and worse. Because countries are going to see this. That the U.S., they're in big trouble. They'll be dumping the dollar. They'll be dumping their papered assets as quickly as they possibly can to try to get out of everything. And the whole thing is going to be a complete mess. This is what is headed our way. Get prepared. Ensure your wealth. Make sure you have gold and silver. Make sure you are ready. Make sure you have food supplies, because once these dollars come back to the United States, we're going to see inflation. Then we're going to see hyperinflation. And the dollar value is going to lose its value very quickly. And the prices of food and everything else is going to go up very, very quickly. We're already seeing inflation. The Fed can't control it. It's going to get out of control. So what we're seeing right now, we're in one